I have returned from the Cannes Film Festival. Those who don't follow me on other platforms may not have even known I was there. Mere days after I was accepted, I found out that I had to move on very short notice, so I've been off YouTube for a bit, and I just want to say rest in peace to my apartment and my trusty YouTube background for the last 3 years. Gone but not forgotten. We will rebuild. But Cannes was a dream. It was a complete honor to be there. I went with my 2 podcast co-hosts. Per usual, I saw my friends, I met new ones, and I saw many great films. I will say though, people don't know how to walk there. I've never witnessed anything quite to this degree of just like complete chaos on the streets, and it was driving me insane. I saw 20 films total plus 2 restoration rescreenings of The Gold Rush, the Chaplin film, and Hard Boiled. Guys, I saw the Hard Boiled restoration in theaters, and it was like seeing the world through new eyes. It looked so gorgeous, and if this whole Shout Factory Hong Kong Cinema Classics thing gets some theatrical releases, I will be present for that too. But I can't talk about every film. You might notice that some highly anticipated ones are missing from this list. I thought Eddington was dreadful. I found The Phoenician Scheme sadly a bit disappointing, especially after Asteroid City. These films will be discussed more either on the podcast or I'll do full-length videos for them once they get wider releases. Eddington especially, I would love to talk about. But for now, I want to discuss the 9 films that I came away feeling are really worth your time, really worth checking out. But of course, there are some that I didn't see, some that other critics loved, so let me know your thoughts on these and what you guys are looking forward to out of Cannes. First up, we have The Secret Agent. This is a Brazilian film written and directed by Kleber Mendonça Filho that follows Marcelo, a teacher caught in the political turmoil of the final years of the Brazilian military dictatorship in the 70s. I wasn't as high as I'm Still Here as some people because it felt a little bit biopic-y to me, so it was really interesting to see The Secret Agent approach the same era and subject matter in a way that plays with reality a bit more. It has a bouncier, more humorous tone, but it still hits you with the severity and oppression of living there during that time. That's all to say, it takes some more creative liberties within the medium more than just telling the story straight, which I thought was really interesting and exciting. Wagner Moura, who a lot of people probably became familiar with after Civil War, is fantastic in it. He won the leading actor prize at the fest. It's a long movie. It can be a little bit tedious at 2 hours and 40 minutes, but absolutely worth your time. It has 2 great split diopter shots in it, the only ones that I noticed for sure at the festival. Next up is Highest to Lowest. This is Spike Lee's remake of the Akira Kurosawa film from the 60s, High and Low. If you haven't seen the original film, you should, just because it's a masterpiece, but having seen it will also make Highest to Lowest so much more rewarding. I think a lot of wrong things are going to be said about this film, but Spike is kind of inviting that. He puts this like formal meta commentary in it in order to highlight the wealth and social disparities that are at the center of it thematically. And though it's a very modernized version of Kurosawa's film, it's clear that he understands that and stays true to the essence of that film while having a lot of fun with it. The plot is basically that Denzel Washington is this legendary music mogul whose friend's son gets kidnapped instead of his own son as a mistake. And what starts off as like a stilted, shiny digital soap opera becomes a gritty street-level bonanza that is one of the most electric stretches of a film I've seen this year. It's really exciting. Everything that Spike is doing up until the end is really interesting, even if it might not work on every level. I don't think everyone will love this film, but I do think it's more intentional than some people might end up giving it credit for. It's just a ton of fun. Denzel Washington is Denzel Washington, but A$AP Rocky is a great actor. Good for him. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is a batshit crazy movie. I cannot believe I got to see it at Cannes. We did like not only a very deep dive on The Final Reckoning, but we did an entire retrospective series of Mission on the podcast. So that's available. My general thoughts on The Final Reckoning are that it is the most narratively irresponsible mission movie ever, and not in the good way. Like, so much of it is just nonsensical and clearly a product of how, in many ways, they come up with these films as they go along. Gabriel sucks as a villain. The Entity is mostly not much of a thing anymore. No one gets a great arc. And yet, the submarine sequence exists. I sobbed twice. I was thrilled and locked in for the entire runtime. time. I don't know what drug is in these films, but they're pretty much invincible at this point. And so much of that is because Christopher McQuarrie is an incredible filmmaker. But it's also kind of frustrating because there are significant issues, and so many of people are saying that we just don't care. I care a little bit, which is why I'm around a 3.5 for it now, but I need to rewatch it, and I need to know what James Cameron thinks of that subsequence ASAP. Alpha. Whoa. After the success of Raw and Titan, which won her the Palme d'Or and I think is unquestionably a masterpiece, Julia Ducournau has made her saddest and least gruesome film that was maybe the most immediately and loudly divisive film at Cannes, except for maybe Eddington. Both of those films had people coming out like angry at them. It's been well established that Alpha is an AIDS allegory, and a pretty heavy-handed one. There's an outbreak where people slowly turn into this marbly stone that Ducournau has said she saw like a statue in tribute to people who have been lost to AIDS, because she grew up during the AIDS epidemic. So it's very close to her. And it's also about childhood trauma and how we process that through memory, and a young girl's relationship with herself and her mother and her uncle. The further removed I was from it, the more I started to remember and connect these little lines of dialogue or the imagery that Ducournau employs throughout it. It's really powerful stuff, and even though I don't completely disagree with what a lot of its detractors are saying, and it's not surprising that it's divisive, because Ducournau bets like the entire film on a really insane dramatic fulcrum, so it was bound to not work for everyone. But for me, like, it has this hypnotic quality to it. Like, there's something deeper and very human going on there. The three leads are great. It does kind of defy genre. So whether you think it's a failed experiment or whether you end up really loving it, I can't imagine that anyone would regret watching it. Die My Love was one of my most anticipated films going into the fest. I love Lynn Ramsey, and hearing that this was about a mother experiencing postpartum depression and starred Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson, like, the bells were going off. And I loved it. What I found most refreshing about this was that it's not so much about her connection with her child as it is about her connection to herself and her own life. And it is also kind of like 2 hours of Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson acting like lunatics. It's like this very loosely structured, surreal mood piece. Like, everything is exaggerated and crazy. I'm honestly not really sure how a wider audience is going to react to it, but all of that really brings you into the headspace of these characters and what it might feel like to be so isolated. Like, it feels like Jennifer Lawrence's character, is destroying herself just to have an impact on the world around her and prove that she still exists after becoming a mother. There are some extraneous bits in it that feel like they could be, I don't know, fleshed out or completely omitted that are clearly from the book that it's adapted from. But on the whole, spectacular performance from Jennifer Lawrence. A lot of people will say that it is one of her best. It was a big hit at the festival. I loved this one. Pillion was probably the most out of left field favorite for me. We saw some early reactions and immediately went to get tickets for it, especially this one from IndieWire talking about ball gargling and bootlicking. Harry Melling plays a sort of meek guy who's living at home who starts seeing BDSM biker Alexander Skarsgård and gets swept up into this world of kink and the biker community. This movie is like what people on Twitter think the history of sound is going to be, which I also saw and unfortunately did not love. But Pillion is raw and sexual, but it's also really beautiful and hopeful in its depiction of those relationships and experiences that we're all familiar with that might require heartbreak or turmoil in order for us to develop and discover our sexual and romantic identities. It uses this kink community as a vehicle for that in a really thoughtful way. It's also super funny. Like, the humor and tone is pitch perfect. Melling and Skarsgård are both incredible. It doesn't get much better than this. I think people are gonna freak out when it's finally released. Sentimental Value was the last movie I saw at the fest, and we had been patiently waiting for something that seemed like it was like a shoo-in to win the Palme d'Or, and this was it. It may not have actually gone on to win the Palme d'Or, but finally we had like a good contender. There was this sense of relief that finally we had an unambiguous hit. Just a really great film that is emotionally nuanced and life-affirming and funny. It's a movie about movies. Renata Reinsve plays the daughter of this director played by Stellan Skarsgård, and when he writes a film for her to star in and she refuses because of their strained relationship, Elle Fanning's character takes the role instead, and the film sort of unravels their past and prods at their relationship friendship in this vaguely metatextual way. Joachim Trier has been on everyone's radar since The Worst Person in the World, and there's a very direct line here of if you enjoy one, you'll enjoy both. He employs the same sort of intimacy between his characters, empathy for his characters' faults, and sort of desire for their growth. I think that's something so special about his films. They feel so intrinsically kind and optimistic without shying away from the truth of what these people are going through. Total home run. It was a great way to end the festival. I got whiplash with Chronology of Water because hearing Kristen Stewart was directing her first film, I was immediately on board. And then reading that it was adapting the memoir of a swimmer, I was like, oh, okay, what is that gonna be like? And I never should have doubted her because this movie is so major. I was surprised to see mixed reactions to it, but then also kind of not. It feels like a stream of consciousness memory piece, almost as though it was about Kristen Stewart's own life. And I'm sure that she's experienced a lot of the things depicted here, but the unflinching empathy and care with which she approaches Lydia Yuknanovich's life is inspiring. It's brave not only in the subject matter, which is very, very heavy, but Imogen Poot's performance as well. And the filmmaking is so assured and intuitive, especially like working with a structure that's so abstract. It's unlike any sort of biopic anyone has probably ever made, but she knows exactly, like, it's still easily understandable, and she knows exactly what the audience will remember and feel. The editing and sound design are so important to that too. I think it just proves a natural inclination that Kristen Stewart has for using the medium that money can't buy, and it hasn't been picked up for distribution yet, and I find that deplorable. So fingers crossed that it'll come out in the US sooner rather than later. And the best film that I personally feel I saw at Cannes is a German film called Sound of Falling. This completes an awesome grouping of films at the fest that are about womanhood or coming of age that share an eerie amount of thematic specifics and even like visual motifs between Alpha, Die My Love, Chronology of Water, and Sound of Falling. This is another one that is very loose. It's telling the story of 4 different generations of women who lived on the same farm, like in the same farmhouse in Germany. And it can be difficult to track at times who is who, but that's ultimately the point. It reminded me of 100 Years of Solitude and this sort of cyclical generational nature of things. But instead of it being about how humans don't learn from our mistakes, it's about how these women who are living completely different lives in different periods of time have so much in common and share so many experiences, almost as if they were all like cosmically the same person. It is at once incredibly bleak, like the director Masha Shalinsky's vision of womanhood is morbid, like death always feels like it's right around the corner, but it's also so affirming and beautiful and cathartic in how it depicts these things with such emotional accuracy. Like I felt like I could sit forever in the feeling of seeing my life and experiences on the screen in a way I hadn't ever really seen before. And this was only her second feature film, I think, so very impressive. This one really stuck with me and was my favorite of the festival. So those are the films that I saw at the Cannes Film Festival this year that I would highly recommend, that I think are worth your time. But again, I missed some stuff. Listen to other creators and critics. Here is my complete ranking of the 20 films that I saw, and I have more ratings available on Letterboxd. I'll mention quickly, like Surat is a really interesting one that's going to be distributed by Mubi. Nouvelle Vague from Linklater is really charming. Urchin, Harris Dickinson's directorial debut, I didn't love, but I had a lot of friends who really liked it. And then of course there's the actual Palme d'Or winner, which I missed. It was just an accident. I also missed Begone's Resurrection, Kelly Reichardt's The Mastermind, so I'm very excited to check those out when I can, but let me know what you guys are looking forward to out of the fest. In terms of wide releases coming up soon, we've got Ballerina, F1, The Life of Chuck. We've got a fun summer of movies right around the corner, so don't forget to like and subscribe and keep an eye out for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.